2026 promises to be an insane year for speed freaks. Major franchises are making a massive comeback, and new IPs are arriving to shake up the genre with absurd graphics, realistic physics, and game modes that feel like they were pulled straight out of a virtual racer's dream. Whether you are on Team Simulator, liking to feel every corner as if you were on the track, or part of the crowd that enjoys insane arcade action and drifting on the edge, today's list has a bit of everything. So, settle into your seat, adjust your belt, and prime the turbo, because we're checking out the 10 best racing games coming in 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch.
Lives on the line! The pilots were incredible! Best of the best!
Forza Horizon 6 finally takes the franchise to Japan in 2026, launching first on Xbox Series and PC, and later on PS5. And that, in itself, completely changes the game's atmosphere. It's the kind of setting that makes you want to just start the car, forget the events for a few minutes, and just drive. The point that excites the most is precisely the setting. The entirety of Japan, recreated in that Horizon style, with a stylized Tokyo as the central city, surrounded by rural areas, coastal roads, and mountainous regions. You can perfectly imagine leaving a neon-packed urban neighborhood, crossing tunnels, hitting a road that starts to climb, and suddenly seeing Mount Fuji on the horizon, as the teaser already let slip. Another game changer is the Japanese automotive identity finally taking center stage, not just as a menu car, but as the soul of the map. The devs have already been seen scanning K-cars and talking about regions with a drift tradition, which opens up space for plenty of insane compact cars, narrow mountain tube runs, and events fully designed for those who truly love JDM culture. In terms of structure, it remains the Horizon Festival, with that focus on total freedom, exploring the map, jumping into events whenever you feel like it, and experiencing multiplayer and co-op, all stitched together in a massive open world. The difference is that, in a setting like Japan, even a simple night cruise carries more weight, because the geography itself already gives the feeling of being in a classic drift game mixed with the arcade madness of Horizon. Technically, you can expect a refinement of everything that came in 5, but pushed to the current generation. The game is planned for Windows and Xbox Series in 2026, with the PS5 version arriving later. This means the map doesn't need to be held back by old hardware, so it's reasonable to imagine denser cities, more varied tracks, and more dramatic weather and time of day transitions over those Japanese landscapes. The most interesting part is that, even with the teaser and official announcements, there is still plenty of room for surprises. No final car list, detailed progression systems, or major design changes revealed so far. And that, personally, is what makes talking about Forza Horizon 6 right now so fun. You can dream about what it will be like descending a rain-soaked Japanese mountain pass in a turbocharged Japanese car, knowing that in 2026, this fantasy will finally be in our hands. Star Wars Galactic Racer arrives in 2026 as an explosion of speed in the Star Wars universe, reinventing pod racing with an underground and brutal touch that makes me anxious to step on the gas. It's one of those games that takes what we love about pod racing in The Phantom Menace and transforms it into something dirtier, riskier, set in the post-Empire Outer Rim, where there are no Force heroes, just crazy pilots fighting for glory and revenge. Personally, this already wins me over, because racing in Star Wars has always been about pure chaos, and here, it seems it will deliver that in industrial doses. The heart of the matter is the Galactic League, an illegal circuit born in the vacuum of the fallen empire, with syndicates backing pilots and fortunes changing hands in seconds. You control Shade, a lone pilot obsessed with glory and payback against rival Kestar, forging alliances and surviving drama-filled campaigns that mix narrative with high octane. Just imagine, ramming rivals, pushing ships off the track, and choosing branching routes on iconic planets, each lap unique, full of risk and reward that makes the heart beat faster. The repulsor craft are the main highlight, divided into classes with distinct physics and styles, requiring strategy to master everything from insane drifts to brutal takedowns. No ground cars here. It's all aerial, fast, with varied environments from both known and new Star Wars worlds, ensuring no track feels repetitive. I can already feel the adrenaline just thinking about maneuvering through narrow canyons or planetary mists, customizing skills and characters to become a legend in PvP multiplayer. Developed by Fuse Games, a new studio formed by Criterion veterans, those guys behind Burnout Paradise and Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, the game promises that electrifying arcade feel with modern depth. Matt Webster, the CEO, talks about adventurous, spectacular, and exciting racing, and it's easy to believe, as they've taken the DNA of epic collisions and thrown it into the Star Wars galaxy. Published by Secret Mode with Lucasfilm Games, it releases for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC, with no exact date yet, but 2026 will be the year. What really excites me is how this elevates Star Wars racing beyond nostalgia. No prophecies or lightsabers, just pure skill, strategy, and a hunger for victory in solo or online modes where reputation is everything. Planets with dynamic routes and varied weather will make every session addictive, like just one more race turning into lost hours. It's the type of game that will make me forget the real world while I pilot high-speed ships across the galaxy. Still with the teaser from the Game Awards 2025 fresh in memory, mysteries remain like the full ship list, more campaign details, and multiplayer innovations, but that only builds the hype. Personally, Star Wars Galactic Racer looks like the racer the franchise needed for 2026. Bold, chaotic, and ready to get me hooked on. Impossible tracks. I can't wait to fire up the engines and see if Shade becomes the new Anakin of the tracks. Just without the dark side of the Force getting in the way. Gear.Club Unlimited 3 arrives first on the Nintendo Switch 2 on February 19th, 2026, and the promise is to be the series' most ambitious new chapter, mixing an accessible arcade vibe with a much more robust content package. The PS5, Xbox Series, and PC versions are planned to arrive later in 2026, so the Switch 2 will be the initial home for this launch. What draws my attention most is the idea of an automotive road trip. The game takes you from the mountainous roads of Japan to the sun-drenched coasts of the French Mediterranean, creating a contrast of scenarios that perfectly suits casual racing, the relaxing kind, and, at the same time, serious competition. This is the type of map track selection that makes you want to play just one more race, because the landscape changes so much it feels like you're switching games without leaving the same package. In terms of structure, the career mode seems to want to go beyond the basics. The campaign tasks you with creating the first Gear.Club in Japan, recruiting pilots, and building a team with mechanics and engineers, with the narrative alternating between Japan and France. I like this type of progression because it gives the racing a clear purpose. It's not just winning for the sake of winning, it's building a garage with a story, and feeling that every upgrade was earned. Now, if there's one mode I already know will become an addiction, it's Highway Rush. The proposal is to race on Japanese highways at extremely high speeds, dodging dense traffic with that one mistake and it's over tension. This type of traffic racing is pure fuel for replayability, because every attempt becomes a different story, and usually ends in a fun disaster. Content seems to be the focus. Promotional materials mention more than 50 tracks distributed between France and Japan, plus local split-screen multiplayer for 2 players. A large set of licensed cars was also mentioned. Some sources cite more than 40 vehicles, with customization and upgrades via a resource system, which fits the collect, tune, and get back to the track vibe. And speaking of incentives to join early, there is a pre-order with exclusive cars, Honda S2000 and BMW Z4 special editions, and a deluxe edition that includes 3-day early access and DLC with cars like the Nissan GT-R R35 Nismo, Nissan 370Z Nismo, and Bugatti Mistral, plus credits/items to speed up the start of your career and cosmetic packs, carbon hoods, and neon lights. To me, the coolest thing is that it seems to embrace two fantasies at once: the tourism of beautiful roads and the controlled chaos of racing at the limit with traffic and tuning. Grand Pro Circuit, created solo by the talented Marcel Baragnai, is a retro racer that captures the brutal essence of 80s open-wheel racing. Scheduled for release on PC via Steam in 2026, and that already makes me miss that era of heroes without assists. It is a passion project from a solo dev that puts you in the cockpit of superpowered, lightweight, and dangerous cars, where a mistake on the first corner can end everything, with no ABS or traction control to save you. Personally, I love how this promises to revive the real risk of old-school racing, like Senna or Prost fighting wheel-to-wheel without a safety net. The focus is on fictional championship seasons inspired by 1980s Formula One, with classic tracks recreated in a pixelated or low-poly style that screams arcade nostalgia. You compete on iconic circuits, managing tires that wear out fast, scarce fuel, and engines that scream at the limit, all with a pure manual gearbox to feel every gear shift. Imagine the tension of overtaking at the hairpin, knowing that colliding is almost guaranteed. That's what makes me want to play for hours just to master the perfect line. The cars are the soul of the game. Overpowered single-seaters with fictional designs that remain faithful to that turbo-era vibe, full of minimal downforce and insane straight-line speeds. Without assists, the physics demand surgical precision, with controlled drifts and braking on the edge that punish amateurs but reward those who train. To me, this is gold. Finally, a racer that doesn't hold your hand, forcing you to become a real pilot instead of a tourist. Structurally, the main mode is the GP circuit, with progression through seasons where you rise from rookie to champion, unlocking teams and upgrades limited by the tech of the time. There is online multiplayer to beat real rivals, and free modes to practice tracks like Monza or Silverstone under simulated rain. What excites me is the replayability. Every race becomes unique because of the randomness of safety cars and mechanical failures. Developed by Marcel as a hobby that became reality with Mascot Entertainment Publishing, the game runs smoothly on modest PCs, prioritizing feeling over AAA graphics. The announcement trailer already shows epic collisions and a synthwave soundtrack that transports you to the 80s, with physics that feel like they came out of a coin-op arcade. It launches on Steam with no fixed date in 2026, but the wishlist is already booming, proving that solo passion still wins people over. The hype for me comes from this raw authenticity. Grand Pro Circuit isn't just a game, it's a love letter to old-school motorsport fans, promising an addiction to tight qualifiers and nervous championship finales. Details like the final track list or global leaderboards are still missing, but just seeing the trailer, I'm already imagining grinding to be the next hero. In 2026, it will be one of those games I play until dawn, wheel to wheel with the ghosts of racing history. Carmageddon Rogue Shift arrives in early 2026 as a brutal reboot of the franchise, but with a modern skin, a post-apocalyptic vehicular combat roguelite, where the classic chaos of running everything over is maintained, but now against hordes of zombies and war machines instead of human pedestrians. Developed by 34 Big Things, the same team behind Redout, the game promises to bring back the heavy attitude and dark humor of the original Carmageddon, but with roguelite progression mechanics that make every race a new opportunity for destruction. The setting is a devastated world in 2050, where Earth has been ravaged by war and natural disasters, and the streets are infested with creatures called the Lost, the zombies. and mutant bosses. The idea is that every night, survivors hide in skyscrapers, and Carmageddon becomes a race for survival. Winning means a chance to escape this hell via a spaceport. This transforms the game into something more than just gratuitous chaos. There is narrative weight behind the carnage, as if each run were a desperate escape attempt. The gameplay mixes arcade racing with heavy combat, where the focus is on destroying opponents, crushing hordes, and surviving boss and elite events on tracks that change with the day-night cycle and dynamic weather. Each race is unique, with procedurally generated tracks and challenges. And between runs, there is persistent progression. You improve your car, unlock weapons and perks, and build loadouts that turn your vehicle into a personalized killing machine. 15 fully upgradable vehicles are promised, with different types of drive, forward drive, road drive, all-wheel drive, and 13 weapon classes, ranging from shotguns and machine guns to railguns and rocket launchers. Additionally, over 80 perks allow for synergistic combinations, like focusing on speed and drift, or becoming an armored tank that crushes everything in its path. The visual damage model is highly detailed, with crumpled cars, flying parts, and smoke, making every collision even more satisfying. The game will be released for PC, Steam, and Epic, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, and Nintendo Switch 2, with a launch in early 2026. The Switch 2 version is especially interesting because it shows the studio wants to take this chaos wherever possible, maintaining the anarchic spirit of the original, but with a roguelite structure that fits well with shorter, repetitive sessions. Personally, what excites me most is seeing such a controversial and landmark 90s game being reinvented without losing its essence. It's still about destruction, chaos, and adrenaline, but now with a system that makes you rush back to the track. Rogue Shift looks like the Carmageddon the new generation deserves. Brutal, fast, full of upgrades, and with the promise that even when your car explodes, the legacy continues. 4PGP, 4-Player Grand Prix, arrives on February 5th, 2026 for Nintendo Switch and Switch 2, with a pure 90s arcade vibe that screams arcade nostalgia, but with modern touches that make me want to call my friends right away for a couch session. Developed by Vision Riel and published by 3Goo, the game is all about insane local split-screen multiplayer for up to 4 pilots, perfect for those who enjoy fast and chaotic racing without complications. Personally, this already wins me over because it reminds me of those days of renting an arcade racer with the guys, but now portable and with game share support on Switch 2 for online messiness too. What shines here is the focus on accessibility for everyone. 4 difficulty levels from rookie to expert, plus an assist mode for newcomers or kids, ensuring no one gets left behind in a family race. There are 14 circuits inspired by corners of the real world, with tight drifts and hallucinating straights, and 19 unlockable cars ranging from agile compacts to brute muscle cars. Just imagine, you start in quick race to warm up, move up to championship for a full season, and then grind time attack to break records. It's the arcade package that gets you hooked without getting tiring. The team behind it is heavy duty. Kenji Sasaki, the guy from Sega Rally and Ridge Racer, helped with the design, while Tomoyuki Kawamura composed the soundtrack with synths that echo Virtua Racing and Tokyo Extreme Racer. On the Switch 2 edition, it runs in 4K and 120 FPS with game chat for fluid online multiplayer, and the regular Switch version goes for $19.99, while the Switch 2 Deluxe goes for $24 and US 99 cents. To me, this is genius. It captures the social spirit of let's play something together without needing pro skills. Structurally, the game prioritizes instant fun over heavy simulation. No annoying management, just pick up the controller, choose a car, and floor it on tracks that visually change with the retro low-poly weather. Multiplayer is king. Local split screen on both Switches, game share for local online crossplay on Switch 2, and leaderboards to compete globally later. Each short race encourages just one more, and by unlocking everything, you build your perfect fleet to dominate your friends. The visuals mix 90s aesthetics with a custom engine for top performance, running smoothly on Nintendo hardware without sacrificing the arcade feeling of Ridge or Sega Rally. No PC/Steam date yet, but the initial focus on the Switches shows it's made for portability and parties, ideal for those who want a casual yet addictive racer. I already see whole nights of laughter with epic crashes and last-second overtakes. Still fresh from the announcement, details like the exact track list or starting cars remain, but the trailer already delivers the hype. Japanese arcade racing at its best, social and skill rewarding. Personally, 4PGP is the type of game that will make me relive the multiplayer marathons of the 90s, but in 2026. Ride 6 arrives on February 12th, 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC, Steam, and Epic, with 3-day early access in special editions, and it already promises to be the most ambitious chapter of the franchise, running on Unreal Engine 5 with jaw-dropping visuals. Developed by Milestone, the studio behind MotoGP and previous Ride titles, it raises the bar with an insane catalog of over 340 bikes from 21 manufacturers, including novelties like baggers and maxi enduros that I can't wait to test on off-road tracks. Personally, this excites me because we will finally have variety for those who enjoy heavy touring mixed with pure adrenaline, without being stuck only with superbikes. The main highlight is the Ride Fest mode, an innovative career in a traveling festival format where you become a pro pilot and face real legends like Casey Stoner, Troy Bayliss, and Guy Martin to reach the top. There are 45 tracks worldwide, with traditional circuits, urban streets, kart tracks, and, for the first time in the series, off-road dirt and gravel tracks that will test the limits of traction and courage. Imagine going down a gravel path full of blind corners on a tuned maxi enduro. It's the type of fantasy that makes me want to drop everything and grind ranks right now. The gameplay shines with the dual physics system. Pro mode for hardcore simulation with fine management of traction and brakes, or arcade for total accessibility for casuals, plus adjustable assists and a revamped riding school with practical challenges. Online crossplay ensures global racing, local split screen for 2, and the career/race creator to customize your journey from scratch. To me, this flexibility is perfect. It starts light, becomes a pro addiction, and each bike feels unique on wet asphalt or dust. Content is king here, with 7 bike categories to collect, deep customization of vehicles, helmets, suits, and even an event editor to create impossible GPs. The trailer already shows realistic reflections, guttural engine sounds, and collisions that crumple everything, all optimized for next gen without sacrificing performance. I love how Milestone is embracing off-road without betraying its sim/arcade roots, opening doors for infinite sessions of just one more qualifier. With the announcement fresh from November, surprises like initial DLCs and the full roster of riders/tracks remain, but the hype is sky high, with pre-orders rolling and packs like Made in Japan bikes. I think Ride 6 looks like the definitive moto racer for 2026. Realistic enough for the pros, fun for friends, and with so much content, it will last all year. I can't wait to turn on the PS5 and hear the roar of a bagger on packed earth, feeling every vibration in the controller. Exo Rally Championship is a sci-fi rally game where you compete in off-road events with rovers on alien planets, developed by XBleedive and published by Future Friends Games. It also draws attention because it comes from the same creator as Exo 1, Jay Weston, so you can already expect that mix of strange atmosphere and polished physics. The concept here is very direct and honestly impossible to ignore. Rally at the end of the universe, in inhospitable landscapes, without pretty tracks. It's you, the ship, and the terrain trying to destroy you. Instead of traditional cars, the game puts you in control of advanced rovers with maneuvering thrusters, which completely changes how you tackle jumps, crests, and landings. The idea of using mid-air control to correct the trajectory really grabs me, because it becomes a race that feels half piloting, half survival. The stages are procedural, and the focus is racing between waypoints, so reading the terrain becomes part of the speed meta. Beyond the topography, the game emphasizes atmospheric conditions and weather punishing the race. Strong wind, storms, heat, the kind that makes you rethink if it's really worth taking a shortcut through a valley or facing a crest at high speed. This is the type of racing that, for me, becomes more memorable when every mistake doesn't feel scripted, but rather a consequence of underestimating the planet. The part that interests me most is the promise of having to repair and adjust the rover during the campaign, because that gives it that classic rally spice. It's not enough to be fast, you have to arrive in one piece, or in enough pieces. And since the vehicles can jump far and accelerate heavily, the fast line will likely always be the most dangerous line, just the way I like it. The game bets heavily on career mode, going from underdog to title contender, with an atmosphere of Earth-style rally events, but in the context of this interplanetary competition. Game Pressure also cites progression with a team and ranking, besides saying there is no multiplayer, but you can share procedural tracks to compete for time trials. This, to me, is a bold choice. It swaps the chaos of online for a purer dispute of technique and consistency, where every second was torn from the terrain by force. Super Woden Rally Edge is a spin-off focused 100% on arcade rally, no proper simulation, with a launch set for January 15th, 2026 on PC via Steam. And that sentence alone puts me in the arcade mood, the kind of game you play smiling because everything is fast, direct, and addictive. The coolest thing is that it comes from solo dev Vegeta, Victor Justo de Cruz, so you can feel it's a project with personality, made by someone who truly loves cars and video games. The big twist here is the change in perspective. Instead of the more traditional isometric style of the Super Woden GP series, Rally Edge shifts the focus to a different camera, putting the rally experience at the center of attention and making everything more aggressive, more in your face. And honestly, that's the perfect choice for arcade rally, because rally needs rhythm, and the game seems to want you to enter that trance of brake, turn, correct, accelerate, repeat, until you become part of the track. The main structure is a rally campaign against the clock, time attack in the blood, passing through 6 countries, with events that don't just stick to the traditional stage. There are also Gymkhana-style trials and events inspired by Pikes Peak. This is the type of variety I love because it completely changes the way you drive. In one stage, you want fluidity and consistency. In the other, you want style and millimetric control. And when the car collecting part comes in, the promise is quite generous. The campaign speaks of hundreds of unlockable cars in that stylized, retro, low-poly visual, plus upgrades and that sweet detail of old-school rally. Keeping the car in one piece between stages also matters. To me, this is the gold of the loop. You start with a humble little car, learn to tame the game, and gradually create your dream garage, just the way every car culture fan wants. In the extra modes, it doesn't forget the social side. Besides time trials with online leaderboards and weekly challenges, there is also local split-screen multiplayer for up to 4 players. This has a very specific energy, the perfect sit-down-and-play game, creating instant rivalry and those stories of, "I only lost because you cut me off on that corner." And the icing on the cake, although the initial launch is on PC, console versions are expected a few months later. The dev himself mentioned something like 5 to 6 months. So on my radar, Super Woden Rally Edge has everything to be one of those indies that becomes a silent addiction in 2026. Easy to start, hard to master, and looking like a game that respects fun above all else. Screamer, the reboot, is set for 2026 on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. And the big hook is that it wants to return with a much more anime neon noir identity, without abandoning the aggressive arcade soul that made the name famous in the 90s. To me, this is one of those returns that could work very well, precisely because it doesn't try to be just another realistic game. It wants to be stylish, dramatic, and exaggerated in the right way. The game's atmosphere is practically a character, a futuristic city lit by neon, with an aesthetic inspired by 80s and 90s anime and manga, and a story that seems to treat racing as psychological warfare. Milestone has already commented that the idea is to mix arcade driving with a stronger narrative, full of character arcs and themes like revenge, love, ambition, and greed. And honestly, when a racing game nails the vibe, even going from point A to point B becomes an event. The most interesting detail is that Screamer is not being sold as pure racing. The reboot pushes towards a more story-driven format, with animated cutscenes made in collaboration with Polygon Pictures, a Japanese animation studio. This gives the feeling that, between one race and another, you'll be living through episodes, not just picking races from a menu. I like this because it creates context. Every rival, every overtake, and every collision can have a real reason, not just winning because why not. Regarding gameplay, previews describe an arcade racer with more layers than it seems, including a twin-stick control scheme and power-ups that even affect how you drive and fight for position. This excites me because it reminds me of that era when arcade racing was half street fight at high speed, not a clean simulator race. If this is well balanced, it could become the type of game where skill and cunning count equally. There's also a legacy factor here. The original 1995 Screamer was known for its arcade style and for appearing in the wave of Ridge Racer, Need for Speed, Destruction Derby on PC before the series fell into limbo for many years. The reboot seems to embrace this idea of reinvention instead of trying to copy the past with a new skin. To me, that's exactly how a return should happen. Respect the essence, but provide a new reason to exist. And there's an extra spice that draws attention. It was announced that Troy Baker is participating, voicing a pivotal character, which reinforces that the narrative will indeed be important, not just a backdrop. We still need to see, in practice, how it all fits together, how much story versus how much racing, what the modes will be like, and how the game will sustain replay value after the campaign. But if it delivers this mix of stylish arcade plus anime drama plus bold mechanics, Screamer could become one of the most different and memorable racers of 2026.